the Merry Mass of Christ, which is a pagan feast of December 21st, has nothing to do with the true Lord Jesus Christ of the Bible. And then they're going to make a new year in the depth of dead winter on January 1st when all the trees lost their leaves and everything's... It's ridiculous. New Year should be when the spring comes. But not the Jesuits. New Year's to them is when it's dark and gloomy and dismal and all the leaves are gone. That's their January 1st. It's all pagan. So Alexander I, when you still were on your wonderful Julian calendar, he kicks out the Jesuits with the royal ukase and he closed all Masonic lodges. So you think the Jesuits liked that? You think the Jesuits liked Alexander after he did that to them? No, that's why Alexander was poisoned. He was poisoned in 1825. Peter the Great was poisoned with porridge. He was poisoned with something else. The Jesuits' favorite poison at this time were arsenic, strychnine, and antimony. Those are the three major metallic poisons they love to use. So, Alexander was poisoned. After Alexander comes to power, let me erase this. After Alexander was poisoned, pardon me, after Alexander's poisoned, another Tsar comes to power, and that Tsar is Nicholas I. Next Tsar comes to power is Nicholas I. I think that's how you spell it. Nicholas I. Nicholas I enters into a concordat with the Pope. A concordat is a treaty recognizing certain rights that the Vatican has to exercise in your country, particularly education. Hitler had a concordat. Mussolini had a concordat. Franco had a concordat. As we shall see a little later, Stalin had a concordat. So, Nicholas I enters into a concordat with the Pope. Concordat with the Pope at the time, submitting Russia essentially to the political power of the papacy. Well, Nicholas I dies, thank God, and another Tsar comes to power, and this is Alexander II. Alexander II was your second greatest Tsar. Alexander II wanted to do away with the secret police called the Okhrana. He wanted to establish a constitution for Russia. He was about to free all the Russian serfs, as Lincoln would free the slaves, which was a crime. You don't radically emancipate slaves. They have to be emancipated gradually, and the owners need to be paid. You don't have a radical emancipation and strip those slaves of their protective masters and throw them in the streets. So, a radical emancipation by Lincoln was a war effort, and the reason I bring that up is because Alexander II deployed the Russian fleet into the harbors of the East Coast and the West Coast to prevent any blockage runners of the South from getting in and out of the country to Europe. So he deployed the Russian fleet for this. So Alexander sided with Lincoln, but he didn't really know what he was doing. I don't regard him as a conspirator, a conscious conspirator on the side of the Jesuits to destroy the white Protestant South, which is what happened. Alexander thought he was doing the right thing. He deploys the Russian fleet. And so what happens is, with the other things that he was going to do away with the secret police, free the serfs, and they were all the same race, so that's a different matter. They were Orthodox Serbian serfs. It's a difference. Orthodox Russian serfs. He was going to free them. It wasn't a racial matter that would bring confusion into Russia. And so they were going to, all the serfs were going to be freed, no secret police, a written constitution. Russia was going to be brought into the modern era with all of its natural resources to become a powerful, independent nation that was against the Jesuits, because at this time, the Jesuits are suppressed. They're not allowed in Russia, nor is the Masonic Lodge. So, Alexander II is assassinated. In 1881, they bombed his coach, blew his legs off. That was the third attempt. Solzhenitsyn writes about this in his work Gulag. And by the way, Alexander Solzhenitsyn was a Jesuit temporal coadjutor. He was no hero for you Russian people. If he was a hero, this military government in Washington, run by the Jesuits, would have never let him live in this country till he died, or thereabouts. So, he's assassinated in 1881. This gives rise to Alexander III. Well, meanwhile, let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about the Crimean War. Which was from 1853 to 1856, I believe, during Czar Alexander, during Nicholas I's reign. During Nicholas I's reign, you got the filthy Crimean War. Crimean War was when Jesuit controlled France under Napoleon III. Jesuit controlled England under that witch of a queen, Queen Victoria. Phony baloney Protestant. She was not a Protestant. She never was a Protestant. She was never the protector of the Anglican Church, ever. I ought to write a book on the wicked things that woman did. Victoria and Napoleon III working together to decimate, to defeat the Russian military, which they did. They won the Crimean War, and Russia lost the Crimean War. One of the things that Russia lost was her control of her holy places in Jerusalem. The Orthodox Church no longer now had any power in Jerusalem. Okay? Due to the Crimean War. That's the relevance of the Crimean War. So it's the Jesuits defeating the Russian military, ganging up on them with France and England, the British Empire, to beat them, to take the holy places from Jerusalem, from them. Now, of course, Jerusalem is under the Ottomans. So even though it was under Ottoman Empire, the Orthodox Church still had access to their holy places in Jerusalem and other places. That was taken from them with the Crimean War. Next is, you have Alexander II. He's assassinated. And what's going to happen to him is going to have Alexander III. He comes to power. Alexander III is a Jesuit. He's a Jesuit coadjutor. He's a very vicious man. And what does he do? He blames the Jews for the assassination of his father, Alexander II. When there was a Jew involved, but the ones who killed Alexander II, they were known as the anarchists. The anarchists in the 1800s are responsible for the assassination of 50 heads of state. One of them is McKinley here. Another one is 1901. When they assassinated Garfield, 1881. Same year they assassinated Alexander II. They assassinated James Garfield here, 1881. And they also later assassinated William McKinley in 1901. So, you have Alexander III, he's a Jesuit coadjutor. He's going to blame the Jews for the assassination of his father. And now he's going to start the pogroms, where he's going to kill thousands of Jews for the the alleged crime of a particular Jew that assassinated his father. This is what the Jesuits do. They blame the Jews for what they do. And they always have some upfront Jew that they can blame for it. And they're usually Masonic, like Karl Marx. Karl Marx is not the father of communism. The Jesuits are the fathers of communism. But the Jesuit general, Peter Bex, would tutor Marx in the British Museum for many years in the writing of the Manifesto. Who says this? None other than Otto von Bismarck, the great chancellor of the Second Reich. He said this, that Peter Bex had tutored Karl Marx, and that's another reason we kicked him out of Germany. Why we kicked Marx out. So Jesuits, communism is Jesuitism. It is not Jewish. It's not Jewish Bolshevism. That's all a lie. So, Alexander starts the pogroms. And now, with these pogroms, you have the curse of Genesis 12 coming on Russia. And also Numbers 24. The Lord says, I will bless those that bless thee, I will curse those that curse thee. Russia, through their leader, cursed the Jews. He's going to bring that curse upon the people of Russia, right here. We ought to be deathly afraid to invoke the curse of Almighty God by persecuting the racial Hebrew Jewish Israelites that are still under the Abrahamic covenant and will always be. Abrahamic covenant is found in Genesis 15. And so, the pogroms start. Sir Alexander III, he leaves power. And Alexander will come to power as Nicholas. Tsar Nicholas II. Tsar Nicholas II is another Jesuit. Coadjutor. How do we know that? Because Tsar Nicholas II will also carry out a huge pogrom in Russia. And this is the pogrom that you see depicted in the famous play, Fiddler on the Roof. This is Nicholas II, just prior to the Bolshevik Revolution. This is the setting of Fiddler on the Roof. Now, Nicholas II, what is he going to do? Nicholas II is going to work in conjunction with a Jesuit. His name is Rasputin, an Orthodox priest that was introduced by way of the Jesuits who controlled Siberia. Rasputin would come in through the Jesuit stronghold of Siberia, be introduced to the Russian court. He was a very evil, wicked man, known for seducing the women of the court. But Rasputin will do much to facilitate Russia's involvement in World War I. And World War I will defeat. Well, just before the World War I, you also have the Russo-Japanese War, where the Japanese sunk the Russian fleet. Sneak attacked and sunk the Russian fleet. You know who built the Russian fleet? A great American named John Paul Jones. He built the Russian fleet. So they're going to attack the Russian fleet and destroy it. When you destroy a nation's fleet, you destroy its ability to protect its coast. So it's open for invasion by a navy, manned with a bunch of soldiers. If you want to destroy a country, you've got to destroy its navy first. Right? That's why when the Jesuits were busy destroying the British Empire in World War I, they used the wolf pack, the subs, to destroy 500 English freighters that would tie the British Empire together. We got to destroy the British Empire, so we have to destroy their commerce and shipping. So we're going to deploy the wolf pack and destroy this. Whenever we see a freighter, we're going to sink it. The Germans sank thousands of British ships because the Jesuits had pitted Protestant Germany against Protestant Great Britain so they could kill each other and then weaken their empires so that the Jesuits could then take control of them and use them for their purposes after that. Okay? All right, so you got Rasputin in here. He will be part of World War I, fomenting that, creating all the discontent in the Tsar's court. The Tsar Nicholas II will be driven from power with the Bolshevik Revolution. So I'm going to erase this and then we'll go to that.
With Nicholas II, could someone be a Jesuit coadjutor not knowing it?
No, not him. Nicholas VII was a Knight of Malta. The second was a Knight of Malta. Russian branch of the Knights of Malta also. I'll bring that up. So he's working in conjunction with the other Knights of Malta, like his kissing cousin, George V. George V and Nicholas II look identical. They look like Bobbsey twins, and there's a very famous picture of them both standing together. Okay, Nicholas II. Nicholas II is a Tsar, but he's also a member of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, Orthodox Russian branch. But remember, all the Knight of Malta branches, their founder is all Blessed Gerard. Gerard is the founder of the Hospitallers, regardless of if you're Russian, American, whatever branch you're in, it goes right back to Blessed Gerard. Okay? And so now he's in on it, because so is his cousin, George V, who's the king of Great Britain during World War I. And so what's going to happen is, Great Britain, the Jesuits are in control of Great Britain since no later than 1760. When we were fighting our American Revolution against Great Britain, we were fighting the Jesuits ruling King George III. Right? That's why when his redcoats came in here, they would herd all the Presbyterians and others into their churches and burn down the church. No Protestant does that. No Protestant or Baptist that believes the book does that on the battlefield. We don't kill women and children. We don't kill civilians. We don't do that. We defeat the enemy and then we leave. But not the Jesuits and their armies. They love to rob, gang rape, and destroy and murder the civilians of a country when they bring their armies in there. Because it's a war against the people, not a war against the government. And that's how you Russian people need to understand what was done to you by Stalin and Hitler as they worked together. We'll get to that. Here we have King George V. He's going to be working in conjunction with the Jesuit order to bring about the Bolshevik Revolution. And we're just going to call it the October Revolution for simplicity. 1917. This Bolshevik Revolution would never have happened had it not been backed by Wall Street and the Knights of Malta around Wall Street. The classic book on this is called Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution by the great and learned Anthony Sutton, who wrote some other wonderful works too. Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution. So my Russian friends, you would not have suffered under Russian communism had it not been for Wall Street and Washington. And remember, during the reign of Warren G. Harding, who was a basically pretty good American president, he was also assassinated in San Francisco. But Warren G. Harding, under his administration, gave like $60 million in money to the Bolsheviks. Warren G. Harding was a 33rd degree Freemason. So he's busy financing brother Freemason Joseph Stalin, brother Freemason Vladimir Lenin, the quarter Jew. Okay, so the Jesuits want to make the Bolshevik Revolution look Jewish. We're going to bring 300 thugs over here with Leon Trotsky out of New York, and they're Jewish thugs, and we're going to bring them into Moscow and make it look like it's a Jew revolution. That's all propaganda. Jews never ran that. They're not organized enough to run that. They can't even run their own communities. They can't run their own country. They're always fighting with each other. The Jews never brought it about. They were used as pawns to openly make it look like it was a Jewish Bolshevik revolution when the Jesuits ran it from stem to stern. And you just gotta ask, who financed it? According to Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution, they gave several $1 million, 120 Broad Street, out of Joseph P. Grace, the father of J.P. Grace of Kennedy assassination, who's buried at a certain Roman Catholic abbey in Massachusetts. But his father on Wall Street helped finance the Bolshevik Revolution. And there's an insurance company in Moscow that was turned into a headquarters for the NKVD. The Knights of Malta set up the Cheka, the NKVD, later the KGB, all set up, made possible by Washington. Who runs Washington? As I show you in my book, Vatican Assassins, the Jesuits have run Washington since March 9th, 1933, with the Emergency Banking Relief Act allegedly passed by Congress, the first act, and then FDR later on that night puts forth Proclamation 2040, and he continues the national emergency that he declared on Monday, March 6th, the Proclamation 2039. The Jesuit, and overseeing all of this was Jesuit Edmund Walsh. This is the very same Jesuit Edmund Walsh that was in Russia from 1922 to 1924, overseeing the government that would be established here. Because what you want to remember this fact also is you want to remember that in 1917, the Bolsheviks, the Jesuit Bolsheviks, when they come to power, they then adopt the Gregorian calendar. The Gregorian calendar. Who put that together? A Jesuit named Christopher Clavius. It's a Jesuit calendar. Why would an Orthodox country adopt a Jesuit calendar? Because they had been conquered. And in the Bolshevik Revolution, they killed over 5,000 priests and nuns who were Orthodox. 5,000. You know why? Because these are some of the priests and nuns that 40 years before that, refused to be part of Vatican I. Vatican I. Vatican Council I, 1870. The Orthodox refused to attend. And so the Jesuits said, we're going to get you for that. You don't want to come to our Vatican I, or the Pope's going to be declared infallible when our Jesuit power will make him infallible, so we're going to control the papacy through the volition of one man, the Pope, because he's now infallible. You're not going to come and participate in this. We're going to make war on you Orthodox people and you Orthodox leaders. How dare you not come to our Vatican I Council, our first Vatican Council. So, the Bolsheviks now are going to get even. Russia's been weakened. They've been weakened with the Korean War. They've been weakened with the Russo-Japanese War. That filthy Theodore Roosevelt, that 33rd degree Freemason, is the one who was the mediator between the Japanese and the Russians to make a peace between them after the Japs had destroyed the whole fleet of Russia, and the Jesuits had taken over Japan by no later than 1865. They caused the Tokugawa shogun to resign in 1868. They poisoned Emperor Komi because Emperor Komi said there aren't going to be any white men allowed to come in Japan anymore, those white devils, because they wrecked this place and they want to take over everything. So he kept the British out, he kept the Americans out. He only let the Dutch in there because the Dutch had helped to save the Tokugawa shogun and the emperor when Will Adams was a English seaman for the Dutch, and they used the Dutch fleet to defeat the Spanish in the 1600s. And so they made Will Adams a samurai, and he was loved by the Japanese samurais and the Tokugawa shogun. And so only the Dutch could trade with Japan, especially after King Charles II of England took a Roman Catholic for a wife. And so the Japanese said, you take a Roman Catholic wife, that means you're working for the papacy. So in 1675, whenever he married Henrietta Maria, the Japanese kicked the English out of Japan. Rightfully so. And so now it's going to be the only ones that could trade with Japan were the Dutch. And they knew what their trading city was that they traded in Japan with? Nagasaki. Now you understand why the Jesuits destroyed Nagasaki in World War II. It was payback for allowing the Dutch to trade with Japan for 200 years. That's right, the Jesuits never forsake nor forget. So, let's keep this in your mind with Vatican I, they refused to attend. And so we got the Gregorian calendar introduced in 1917, but more importantly, 1922. The Jesuits, this is Lenin and Stalin. Here's a quarter Jew, here's a full-blooded racial Gentile that's Russian. Stalin was not a Jew. Anybody that tells you he's a Jew is a liar, or just plain ignorant. Stalin hated the Jews. Stalin had a daughter that married a Jew. And he couldn't stand it that she did that. There's a book you want to get called Svetlana. It tells the whole story of her father, Stalin. Get the book and you'll see who really ran him. Stalin was run by a man named Alexander Paskrevishev, who lived with Stalin in the Kremlin. He didn't have a title, and Paskrevishev put all the death lists together and then handed it over to Stalin for him to sign off so they could kill all these people in Gulag. That's Alexander Paskrevishev. Read all about him. She calls him our man Friday for Joseph Stalin. So FDR, who does he have? He has Harry Hopkins in the White House without a title. And he's telling FDR what to do. And you got Stalin in the Kremlin, and you got Paskrevishev in the Kremlin with Stalin, telling Stalin what to do. Paskrevishev and Harry Hopkins were the ones who were really governing those two dictators. And they were both at Yalta. Okay? So now, Lenin and Stalin will readmit Jesuits into Russia in 1922. Says who? The book Descent into Darkness. I don't have a copy, but I did copy every page of it for someone who had one. It's called Descent into Darkness. I give you the title page here. Descent into Darkness by a priest who taught at Notre Dame. And, well, I can't get it here somewhere. Get the title page, would you? Get the title page of Descent into Darkness. It's right there. No, Descent into Darkness is not here. That's Brotherhood of Darkness. So just get the title page. Anyway, in Descent into Darkness, written in 1922 by James J. Zatko, who was a priest at Notre Dame in Indiana, tells you that the Bolsheviks, Lenin and Stalin, readmitted the Jesuits into Russia in 1922. What in the name of Christ are you Orthodox people doing, knowing this fact and allowing that to happen? That's it. Right here. Okay. Here's a title page called Descent into Darkness. Descent into Darkness by James J. Zatko. And in this book, I have it marked, it tells you that the Jesuits were readmitted into Central Russia in the order of the Divine Word into South Russia, with nothing more than but the Jesuits, okay? Under the other name of some other order. So the Jesuits were readmitted in Russia, and now we're going to take vengeance on what they did to us when they kicked us out of Russia for 102 years. From 1820 to 1922, we're going to turn this nation to blood. And we're going to use our Joseph Stalin that we educated to do it. What do you mean, Stalin educated by Jesuits? There's a book titled Three Who Made a Revolution. Three Who Made a Revolution. In that book, they were interviewing Stalin. What's it like about the Jesuits? What do you think about the Jesuits? He said they're always spying into your personal affairs with eyes and always being crafty. How would he know that? Because he was trained by the bastards. And I use the word bastard in a biblical sense in Hebrews 12. They're not sons of God, they're bastards, and hence they don't get chastisement from God. So, these Jesuit bastards trained Joseph Stalin. The one who trained Joseph Stalin in Tiflis Seminary, for all you Orthodox priests, The one who trained Stalin, his name was Father Demetrius. Father Demetrius. He trains Joseph Stalin there, and he trains him to be a good communist, because Father Demetrius, he's not Orthodox, he's a Jesuit, pretending to be an Orthodox priest. Remember, the Jesuits will feign themselves to be Orthodox and